sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name's Virginia Jones, and I'm a stand-up comedian, and my sister's a therapist.
Hello, my name is Laura Ryan. I have a sister who's a stand-up comedian, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist.
You are now listening to the 96th most popular mental health and wellness podcast.
What?
In Singapore.
I'm still kind of taking it all in.
To take it all in, you got to like it's so overwhelming when you first get the notification.
When you get the tap on the shoulder that you are, you're 96th and in Singapore. Like, what more hot commodity is there than that?
We cracked the top 100 in Singapore, and I feel like that was our main goal.
Always.
We know that our lives will be different now. Laura,
but you know what? Hold on one sec. We're going to still remember the little people.
We will always remember the little people. We love and care about you very, very much.
So we think it would be good if you like our podcast to tell everybody you know, because that's how podcasts get around.
Well, you don't have to tell everybody, but tell the cool people.
Tell the people who would like this.
If you have somebody that you have screwed up conversations with and don't understand why other people behave the way they do, recommend them this podcast. You're going to be talking with them about it anyway.
I mean, this is literally the only thing I ever talk about.
So, Laura, this week it's your topic. What would you like to talk about today?
Well, speaking of our wonderful followership, today was an inspiration from a listener who said, hey, you and your sister keep saying all these acronyms and stuff and keep making references to diagnoses that I don't understand because I'm not a therapist and I'm not a nurse, which is what Virginia is because,
right. You're
a de facto nurse because you're my sister. So anyway, today we're going to talk about cluster B personality disorders, and I'm going to go into in-depth removing acronyms description of these things.
Nutty, crunchy, delicious cluster Bs.
Shout out to another listener. I'm going to use Ed as an inspiration today. He had a great idea, which is to talk about a diagnosis and then use fictional characters to sort of flesh it out. So we're going to be doing that too.
You're my inspiration.
Ed's my inspiration. Virginia, what do you know about cluster B? What is cluster B to you?
A lot of people in my life, I have very casually assigned as borderline personality disorder. And so the traits and tendencies of a borderline person are very, very familiar to me because they just keep being mostly my female friends.
It's your catnip.
It's my catnip. Love a cluster B. I love a lady borderline. This is a friend who is always going to be doing high drama. She's either having the best week ever or the worst week ever. And she is extremely needy. I'm very involved in her life. There's always stuff that she needs doing, and it makes me feel helpful. And also, when nothing is happening, I will not hear from her. She is not a consistent friend. She is a friend who needs me when she's in crisis, but she's in crisis almost all of the time. But Laura was telling me that there's a lot of people who are in a category called cluster B. It includes borderlines, but it also includes bipolar, I think. I want everything to start with B, but that may not be the case.
That's not it. So Let me educate. Let's educate. Because another listener also asked me, hey, why are you doing this podcast? And so the answer to that is that I want to prop up Burge's career. And also I want to make these conversations more a part of the mainstream. I want to educate people so that they don't have to pay me my hourly fee and they can still get something out of me. So personality disorders, there are clusters, right? I learned this in graduate school. So basically there is cluster A, B, and C. B is the one that shows up most in my professional life. Okay. So cluster A personality disorders, the reason that it's a cluster is because it's a cluster of symptoms. So cluster A personality disorders are odd and eccentric. So paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal are cluster A. Cluster C refer to a group of personality disorders that cause long-term feelings of anxiety and insecurity. So that would be avoidant, dependent, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. That is not the same as obsessive compulsive.
It's having OCD, right?
It's OCPD.
OCPD.
Sorry for the acronym.
So to use Ed's thing, I would say that Willy Wonka is a fictional character who we could say is a cluster A. He's a wackadoodle. He's doing things his own way. He is paranoid.
Yeah, but there's a lot of antisocial in that dude. So cluster B personality disorders can be identified by difficulty regulating one's emotions and maintaining healthy relationships with others. It involves antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. Personality disorders are the way it's defined by Mind Help in the article that I read. Personality disorders are long-term patterns of behavior and inner experiences that differ significantly from what is expected, right? Mm-hmm. So Virginia and I were having this conversation about the idea that in the past, we would have people and we would just say, he's just eccentric. He's just like a little bit different.
He's just marching to the beat of his own drum.
Right. And what I've determined is that probably he or she belongs in one of these three categories most of the time. Right. People are not just, if everyone's noticing, then probably there's a personality disorder. And the way that I define a personality disorder is it's about the way that this person relates to the world. It's their whole perception of the world, and it's off.
So there was a gentleman that I knew in Portland, and will not name names for obvious reasons, but he always had, again, a big drama happening. He was always getting in fights. Like he would do these Facebook posts where like a man approached me on the bus and like started punching me for no reason. A woman had assaulted him and his girlfriend. He went up to do a gig in Seattle and he was beaten up by the bouncer. And like, so the first time that, this tragedy happens, you're like, oh my gosh, holy crap, are you okay? And then the third and fourth time it happens, you think, other people's lives aren't like this.
You're noticing a pattern. That's what you're noticing. Right. It's a pattern of social problems, right? And so in a 2018 research paper that was listed in the Mind Help article, it suggests that cluster B is a manifestation of extreme personality disorders that interfere with one's personal life and cause significant distress, suffering, and functional limitations. So this disorder is mostly long-lasting, displays long-term behavioral and inner experiences. Cluster B personality disorders are related to someone experiencing a difficulty in regulating his or her emotional life and struggling a lot to maintain healthy relationships. So people like this, like you said, they are very dramatic, they're overly emotional, they are erratic in their emotional life, and they are unpredictable in social situations. So most people start experiencing symptoms during adolescence and continue throughout life.
Another thing that I notice about this cluster is they may have relationships, but they tend to be short. Like the people who I know, and that's not a rule, but like I've known a couple women who are never partnered, who are attractive, smart, capable women, but are never partnered, and they think it's just bad luck. I'm like, well, it's not just that.
Yeah, it's not just that. And so what I experience in my office on a daily basis is the folks who do, partner up with these people or were raised by these people. So I get to deal with what these people leave behind in their trail of ruin. And so that's pretty much, I had a new client last week. They were just describing, their mother is a borderline, their dad's a narcissist. I'm like, this is literally every person who walks in my office. And I don't know if it's my marketing or...
Right. So like all these people, you're attracting all these people who have a similar background. And it's like, how are they finding you? Can they see it in your photo?
I think it's the photo. Yeah. And they also are all neurodivergent. So everyone that comes in has a personality disordered person or multiple in their life, and also that. So let's break it down. There's a few different kinds, a few different flavors in the cluster B. But cluster A, I have worked with and experienced some people in cluster A. I've also, same with cluster C, but mostly the meat and potatoes of my day is dominated by the cluster B. So the DSM criteria for I was going to say APD, but then that's another acronym, antisocial personality disorder. Here's the criteria: disregard for and violation of others' rights since the age of 15. And here are the subfeatures: failure. We talked about this in the other podcast, but failure to obey laws, norms of engaging in behavior, lying, deception, violation for profit or self-amusement, impulsive behaviors, irritability and aggression, manifested as frequently assaulting others or engaging in blatantly disregarding safety and self and others, irresponsibility, lack of remorse for actions. So have you ever known any of these folks?
That's a little more intense than the people that
I think if we were in the prison population, you probably run across.
Right. We were talking about that in a different conversation. And you said, well, you're not going to run across these people because they're mostly in prison. Like,
accurate.
Because eventually something is going to happen and they're going to be put away. And I'm going to say this is the Joker.
Here are some other fictional characters to kind of elucidate this idea. Dexter Morgan from Dexter.
Right.
So he was aggressive. He had I think the biggest piece was that he had no remorse for his actions. Right. Patrick Bateman from American Psycho.
Right.
A family favorite. I found out that one of our family members, this is their favorite movie of all time. So American Psycho, what did you notice about that guy? Did he seem aggressive or impulsive?
He did have some impulses. I mean, his life was ruled by impulsivity.
Did you experience him as an honest person?
No.
Remember his business cards?
Yeah. I mean, the disturbing thing about the Patrick Bateman character, and it's the disturbing thing about a lot of young men in cinema, is that like he's very much written as a warning, as a scary thing.
Yeah.
And then some
folks have really latched onto it.
This is an ideal, like Fight Club. Chuck Palahniuk was not saying this is a great way to be.
Yeah. I think he had schizoid personality. Anyway.
Satire is hard. Yes. Because he was two peoples.
Right. Hannibal Lecter, another antisocial guy. So yeah, as I said, these folks are going to mostly be found in the legal system. This is where we're going to come across them. Right. But you see, like the cluster of symptoms, it's that inability to manage your emotional life. That's how they landed in the cluster B. Okay. So now we're going to get into my favorite and yours. This is the one that I probably talk about most and experience most in my daily life: borderline personality disorder. So that's chronic feelings of emptiness, emotional instability in reaction to day-to-day events, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, identity disturbance with markedly and persistently unstable self-image, impulsive behavior in at least two areas that are self-damaging, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating, etc., inappropriate, intense anger, difficulty. So that's where it kind of like dovetails with antisocial, difficulty managing anger, recurrent physical fights, a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships. This is kind of the thing you were talking about, characterized by extremes where we idealize, we put people up on a pedestal, and then we drop them down. It's also known as splitting. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, threats, self-harming behavior, and sometimes paranoid ideation or dissociative symptoms. So the fictional characters, we talked about Rebecca Bunch. She's kind of all over the place. Also, Elsa of Arendelle from the film Frozen. Yeah, she has all these features. I think part of it is because she has a magical power that she can't control. And so it makes her, she's very afraid of abandonment. She's all over the place emotionally. And she does, sometimes physically, but definitely emotionally, hurt people. And Livia Soprano. Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
I definitely watched it when it was out, but it's been many, many years. And so this is his wife?
It's his mother.
It's his mother. Thank you.
Yes. And so I don't know, his father had passed away when the characters were on the show, but I know for sure. I mean, Tony obviously ended up being a narcissist. And I think a lot of times when you have personality disordered parents, you will land in that same cluster because you're just trying to cope what's happening around you. But yeah, Olivia was incredible. She actually tried to have Tony killed.
Everybody tries to kill somebody sometime. I do want to talk about splitting.
Yeah.
Because that is when I meet a woman, because I had a girlfriend for many, many years. We were very close, and she was the first person who I figured out was borderline. I'm sure she wasn't the first borderline I've known, but this was the first person where I'm like, this feels different. This is a different kind of friendship relationship. And one of the markers is she has a long history of friends who have betrayed her, and also tells you that you're the best. And like when someone tells you, oh, that person used to be my friend, but she's a scumbag. That person used to be my friend. And then they say, but you're much better than all of them. You're like,
Right.
you know that you're going to be in that list. Like sometime you're going to wind up in the discard pile.
Yes, I've had this experience with clients. When clients are really gassing me up, now I feel a lot of anxiety.
Right. You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. Because what's going to happen when I mess up? Because I am going to mess up. That is life. And the answer is, they might report me to my board. At least that's been the experience so far. Okay. So that's the borderlines. They do, I think, for me, borderline and narcissist feel that it's a flavor check. Like there's a similar flavor in the way that engaging with folks like this, they make me feel. I feel on edge a little bit. I feel anxious, but there's also kind of a familiarity because I've had so many in my personal history. So I think I used to mistake that feeling of familiarity as like love or connection.
As friendship.
Right. But it's just my family patterns, playing out.
And we've talked, like in a funny way, we've talked about the advantages of having a borderline friend. One, you never have to worry about talking about yourself because it's just not even on the menu. And then two, like when they do find out, like I have a friend who I talk to, every day or most days, and like 3 years into the relationship, she's like, I didn't realize you grew up Mormon. I'm like, yeah, you've never listened to me, not once.
Why would we know about the details of your life? Why is that important?
Yeah. And like having conversations with them is interesting because like they'll say something, you'll respond with your thing that you're talking about yourself. They make it about themselves. You're like,
wait a minute. We're not talking about me now? If you find you're talking to someone and realize, oh, wait a minute, this conversation never covers me. No. Chances are good that this person is a cluster B. Listen, that rhyme. That was good. So yes, It's an interesting flavor, but it's one that I unfortunately have coupled up with folks in the cluster B. And it's very tough. Borderlines for me in my relationships, it's very tough to have them in your inner circle because they're so inconsistent.
So I do want to ask why the word borderline has been attached to this thing. Like one of my closest friends, his sister was hospitalized for an eating disorder when she was very young. And when she was released, the doctor told her family she has a borderline personality. My friend thought the doctor was just like insulting her. Like, oh, it's not a very good one. And like, but she is a borderline. She grew up to be a Munchausen by proxy person with her kid, which is awful. But so why does the word borderline, why is that tagged to this group of behaviors?
Disorder. Yeah. According to mentalhealthuk.org, it's because doctors previously thought it was on the border between two different disorders, neurosis and psychosis. But we don't use those terms anymore to describe mental illness, but it's just kind of stuck. So cluster B is antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. There's a lot of debate about changing the diagnosis because it doesn't fit anymore, but things move slowly in the world. The term originally referred to borderline insanity.
That's not something we would say today.
That's ignorant old white man stuff. Okay, so now we're going to talk about histrionic personality. That's the next one on the menu. Here are some of the features. A histrionic person is uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not the center of attention. Interactions with others are characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive, provocative behavior. They display rapidly shifting and shallow expressions of emotions. They consistently use physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. They have a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. They show self-dramatization, theatricality, and exaggerated expression of emotion. They are suggestible. They are easily influenced by others or circumstances, and they consider relationships to be more intimate than they actually are.
What fictional character would that be like?
So Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind is an example. So this is where the idea of like, oh, they're eccentric. No, they have histrionic personality disorder. So her relationship, she goes really deep instantly with people. She doesn't have good boundaries. And again, it's this dramatic theatrical kind of personality. So
over the top.
Yeah. Blanche Dubois from the Golden Girls. Mm-hmm. I think she's like the textbook histrionic person, right?
Yeah. Right.
You just thought she was a self-absorbed nitwit. She has personality.
Yeah. So she spent her whole life like defining herself with how men perceived her. And every win she ever brought to the group was about a man finding her attractive or having sex with her or something.
It was all about her sexual escapades.
Her escapades, right.
I had one client a long time ago who was histrionic, and it was very, very interesting. Also, if you've seen Bad Teacher, the character that Cameron Diaz plays, Elizabeth Halsey, also histrionic. So, like she had sex with, at school, she was giving her kids, alcohol, like just kind of unhinged.
All kinds of great stuff.
You don't see this one a lot in the world. This doesn't happen as often as some of the other disorders, but it's still there. So let's give it its due.
Hooray for histrionics.
And then we're going to land on the final cluster B, narcissistic personality disorder, which I also...
Big topic. Hot topic.
I've seen this a lot in and out of my office. So here are some of the criteria. Again, we've talked about this in a previous episode, but we're going to go in a little more detail. Grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievement. So I'm just special because...
No matter what.
Because I exist. Fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. We've experienced that with our father. Belief in being special and unique and can only be understood by or should be associated with other special or high status people or institutions like Donald Trump,
You've accused me of this.
Donald Trump. Yes, I have accused you of this. Requires excessive admiration. Sense of entitlement, i.e. unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. Interpersonally exploitative, takes advantage of others to achieve their own ends. Lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Envious of others or believes that others are envious of them. And arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Okay, that's the textbook grandiose narcissist, right?
Absolutely.
The person is always exaggerating, always.
Yes. So like some examples from film, Regina George from Mean Girls. Mm-hmm. She was all about Regina George.
Hold on. Do you think Ferris Bueller would be more histrionic or more narcissistic?
He's narcissistic. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's all about manipulating others for his own ends, right? He believes himself to be more deserving. Special, deserving of everything. It doesn't matter who goes down in his wake, like all that stuff with the car, he stole the car because he wanted to.
Something he did to his best friend.
Right, exactly. And like you have to air quote best friend because that person is not your best friend. Don Draper is another example from Mad Men. It's interesting because I think about, obviously Tony Soprano, Don Draper. All of my fictional crushes have narcissistic personality disorder. And that is not by accident because we form, our relationship model with our parents. And so
we'll talk about the imago in a later episode. We're looking forward to it.
Since my father's narcissists for me are the catnip. So
your father used to be a narcissist.
Yeah, well, what is he now?
An ashtray.
The ashtray lives in my hall closet.
He has recovered from narcissism, which is hard to do.
Yeah, that's true. It does sometimes happen after post-mortem. So here, another fictional character, Michael Scott from The Office. He's it tastes a little different though, right? Because he seems on the surface, he doesn't seem, entitled and all that stuff, but he has covert narcissism, which is it tastes a little different. And so here are the Cleveland Clinic 6 traits of covert narcissists. Susan Albers, PsyD, wrote this. Covert narcissists really don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. They often feel like they're misunderstood by other people. But the reason that they're sort of different is that They often feel like they're misunderstood. They tend to rely on self-deprecation and negative self-talk as a means of getting sympathy and attention from others. So instead of coming from like a genuine place of wanting to help others, they may be doing these things to seek attention and gratitude and appear as a really great person. So yeah, Michael Scott did a lot of things for other people, but he did it when the lights are on. It's these public displays. Like I'm remembering there was a lady, I think she was on TikTok, who she was starting this organization and doing all this stuff for these people. And it turned out that it was all a lie, but she just wanted attention.
Right. Well, covert narcissist, this kind of reminds me of your example when we were talking about OCD and the person was like, but my kitchen is filthy. Like covert narcissists are sneaky because you're like, well, this is not a narcissistic person because this is the person who everything is terrible for all the time. Like They have the saddest story. Their mom was the worst to them. Like everything is always, but like it tastes different, right? But it eats the same because the end result is that they are draining other people of energy and they are demanding to be the center and just like sucking other people dry.
Right. They're sucking the life out of others. They're emotional vampires, but it feels different.
Alan Robinson.
Exactly.
He's on What We Do in the Shadows. And there's a very funny couple episodes where he interacts with a woman who is his mirror, who like, it's just always, they're cut from the same cloth and they kind of compete. But she always has the saddest, most pathetic thing. So his girlfriend's name is Evie Russell, and she's played by the absolutely fantastic Vanessa Bayer from Saturday Night Live.
So she's giving borderline vibes. That's why it's a cluster of symptoms. They read the same. They feel similar.
I mean, what I like about this category is, and I've said it before, like if someone is not making sense in your life, if something is happening where you're just like, I don't know why they're behaving this way. This can't be accurate. You can just say cluster B and move on. You can say, okay, there's somewhere in there.
Right. We don't have to give a hard diagnosis. We just know they have a cluster of symptoms. And what that means is it's probably they're not available for friendship or romantic partnership. Everyone deserves love. So you kind of alluded to this. What I find, if you're just going to look at like big swaths of like how to really just figure it out quickly. So if it's victim, rescuer, or perpetrator, this person is probably always the victim, whether it's a narcissist, whether it's a borderline, whether it's histrionic. I don't know about antisocial, but I think in those three, those are the ones you're going to encounter the most. I would say look for the victim triangle.
And the interesting thing about interacting with this person is that you may come in as a rescuer, but later when you have fallen from their graces, you're the perp. That's always exciting.
It's so fun because what happens is you'll spend a lot of time picking them off the floor, making everything okay for them, probably donating finances to them, doing all kinds of things to fix their lives. But then eventually you will run out of gas and then you will become the perpetrator.
I'm just going to do a quick list. Sleeping at their house because they are afraid. Meeting them at 3:00 in the morning to hear a story about something awful that someone has done, bringing them food to their workplace because they don't have any money and they're starving to death, being there, accompanying them to events that you don't want to go to because they just can't, being there alone. You'll just wind up doing a lot of stuff that you don't like and that it is not for you, that you have to rescue this person.
Right. And that's where it's different from what we would call balanced, healthy relationships. Because, of course, in a balanced, healthy relationship, you're going to find on a regular basis that people are going to need you for stuff. But it's not every week. It's not going to the ER because of their self-harm. It's not staying up with them all night, crying about God knows what. It's not having to basically be an unpaid therapist. That's, to me, when I know I'm in relations with a borderline is when I'm being an unpaid therapist.
Now, hot tip from me, the way you can end your friendship with a person who is a cluster B is very easy. You just have needs.
You require something of them. Yes.
Require something of them, and you will find that your phone goes very, very quiet.
Absolutely. And, if you start setting boundaries around drama and saying, I'm not going to participate in this stuff with you, that's when things get real quiet. Because it's very Colin Robinson. Like, they're using you for supply.
Right. And so the supply can be, with Grandiose and Covert specifically, it can either be, oh my gosh, you're the best, or oh my gosh, that's so sad. It doesn't matter. The energy is the same.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're not a real person. You are just a use of supply. So there's a guy called Lee Hammock. I love him because he's sort of like lifting the veil, right? And somebody asked him the question, well, he has narcissistic personality disorder. He's been diagnosed and he has all the features. But he was talking to someone and they were saying, well, if you're a narcissist, why are you helping people? Like, why are you doing this stuff? And he said, oh, I'm getting narcissistic supply out of you guys from the attention.
That's what makes me crazy about Mr. Lee Hammock. You've sent me his videos and I'm just like, it makes me so uncomfortable. He tells you in every video, I'm a narcissist. I have narcissistic personality disorder. But like, yes, he's using it to get attention. And that feels I'm like,
yeah, he's self-aware, but at the end of the day, he's still a narcissist. I mean, I feel like if we're talking about Hannibal Lecter,
he helped Clarice, and like they had a very weird, short relationship.
I mean, that's a stand-up guy if I've ever heard of one. But yes, I think Lee Hammock, I understand your discomfort. It makes sense to me. But as a therapist, I love it that he's out there preaching. I mean, because I hear about all the Lee Hammocks in everybody's life, every second of every day. And all of them are saying, but why did this happen? And why did that happen? So I like it because he's sort of lifting the veil and he's letting everybody know what the secrets are so that you don't keep messing around.
Let's go over like, how can you identify a cluster B and what can you do to protect yourself against a cluster B to avoid being a person who has to visit Laura's office?
I think the way to identify it is that extremity in their relationships. Like, I remember a friend in the past who I was getting to know, and she just started telling me about all these people who had betrayed her and all these people who had hurt her. And of course, we're all trauma survivors on some level. So we're going to have some of those stories, but it's about the frequency. If you notice as a frequent thing, if you find that the person that you're engaging with is constantly on the struggle bus, there's a good chance that this person is a cluster B.
Also, if every conversation with this person leaves you a little drained, if this person, there's not an energy exchange, all the energy is going one way, you'll just find yourself feeling tired.
Right. And I usually find that I have a headache if there's a long interaction with this person. So what do we do if we have these problems? Some ways to manage cluster B personality disorders include psychotherapy, talk therapy. So behavioral therapy, including cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical, so that's where you're talking, dialectical behavioral therapy, and also acceptance and commitment therapy, medication, because cluster Bs, there's usually going to be what they call comorbid symptoms like a mood disorder. So usually there's going to be depression or anxiety or both. So treating the mood disorder might help to kind of loosen up the symptoms. The thing I found really interesting is, as I'm learning more and more, is that a lot of this has to do with their trauma history, but a lot of it is also genetic. Like, you're predisposed to have a personality disorder. I remember I went to an EMDR conference. That stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. I went to this conference and we watched, one of the speakers was a neuroscientist, and he was showing us CAT scans of the brains of borderlines, and they were all the same.
That is wild. I thought it was all a trauma reaction.
I think that, if you had a super awesome childhood, it's that thing of like, you have the go in the gut and then it gets fired and you land in this area. So Bill Eddy, LCSW, in an article in Psychology Today, can people with cluster B personality disorders change? He says some are considered more amenable to treatment now, but their enduring patterns still make them more difficult to treat than substance use disorders. So that's pretty hard.
Wow.
Because, substance use disorders are very difficult to treat. Personalities develop over many years. Changing them is like learning a new language and culture. If you have someone in your life that you suspect might have borderline or narcissism, there's an excellent book by Margalis, Fjelstad, FJELSTAD, called Stop Caretaking the Borderline or Narcissist. And I find it very, very helpful. It's all about setting healthy boundaries, being consistent, protecting yourself more than anything so that you don't get pulled into this drama and difficulty.
Awesome.
Virginia, what are your final thoughts about cluster Bs? What have you learned?
I have learned a lot about them. I thought I knew a lot, but my main takeaway is just if you're worried that someone you know is a cluster B personality disorder, but you're not sure, ask if I know them, because
ask if Virginia has a long-term friendship with them. Then
are they in my phone?
It's self-selecting.
What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, it's interesting to me how many fictional characters are built on this. That was kind of, it's just funny to me because I think when I think about Blanche Devereaux, like she's one of my favorite people of all time. Probably wouldn't want to be her friend, but right. I love that this character exists in the world. But I think it's also, pretty clear the drama, the difficulty. I think for me, it's reminding me of why I've had difficulty in romantic partnerships, because these folks seem to be in my life a lot.
Well, but these personalities are great for film and television because, one, they are kind of fascinating.
They bring the drama.
They literally bring the drama. If you need things to move along and you need someone who they may not 100% make sense, but they will dive into something, it is a cluster B.
So for all you screenwriters out there, get into it. They're going to move your story. They're going to make it way more interesting.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for listening. As we said before, we would love it if you would rate and review our podcast. We would also love it if you told a friend. You can contact us if you have suggestions. We've been using your suggestions. You can contact us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. You can also write us a review. And Laura has a featured review this week.
That is correct. This review comes from KK Podcast, which is an interesting name. So this is what they said. As a teacher, I love learning and hearing others' perspectives, but I'm not a huge podcast listener because after a day at school, the last thing I want to do on my commute is listen to more talking, lol. That's what I love about this podcast. It's just like sitting down with friends for happy hour. Laura is clearly knowledgeable about all things therapy and mental health related, but she and Virginia present it in a humorous, relatable, and palatable way instead of sounding like they're reading out of a textbook. Well, today I kind of did. Virginia's hilarious commentary is just the icing on the cake. It's a fun yet informative way to spend your commute. Thank you, KK Podcast.
Thank you so much, KK Podcast. And to our family member who asked, why are we doing this? I mean, that's why.
Exactly. We're trying to take hard subjects and make them interesting and fun.
So, Laura, where can people find you online should they want to?
They can find me at lauraryan.org. They can also find me on my TikTok, which is I am Laura Ryan. They can also follow both of us on our Instagram account, My Sister's a Therapist. Virginia, where can people find you?
Well, thank you so much for asking. I am at Badinia, Badinia, on TikTok. That's my website. That's my Instagram. That's my everything.
My everything. It's my all.
But in closing, we want to say look out for them cluster Bs. Have a great day and bye-bye.